Hey everybody, welcome to the Gadget Inspector channel where we're into all kinds of drones and all kinds of gadgets. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We have a special guest today who will be sharing some information about a website he runs called The Legal Drone. I'm talking about Zac Elliott, and the website is a really good place to get some information about drone registration, the Part 107 exam and preparation tips. And in this ever-changing regulatory landscape, he has some information about recreational drone rules and the most recent proposed legislation around remote ID. All right, Zac, welcome, my friend. Why don't you
Thank you, sir.
Get us started here and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a licensed attorney in the state of Ohio, and I have a kind of an interesting background. I have a buddy that is a photographer, and probably about 4 years ago decided to get into drone photography and came to me after he had worked with a bunch of real estate agents that kept saying, "We'd love to do drone work with you, but we're not allowed to. We can't. You have to have some kind of a license. So we're not really sure what to do, but if you get licensed, we'll work with you and we'll figure it out." So he came to me and said, "Hey, can you research this and figure this out?" And so this was back when Section 333 was still in place, and you actually had to be a licensed manned pilot. And he didn't know this, but I had my manned pilot's license.
Wow.
And so when he came to me, I went back to him and I said, "Mark, you're not going to like this. You have to have your pilot's license." I said, "But the good news is if you wanted to partner up, I could be your pilot. I have my manned pilot's license." So
Excellent.
from there, I got my license and got into it, and we've been doing drone stuff for the past 4 or 5 years. And I figured I had a different take on it than a lot of people do, and so I started the Legal Drone and decided to go from there.
Cool. That's cool. That's a cool story, man.
Yeah.
Everybody has a little bit of a story about how they got into drones, and some of us kind of stumbled into it. I know I did. I started flying on one of those little micro-sized little drones around the house, and I was hooked from there. Now I'm flying Mavic 2 Pros and anything else I can get my hands on.
Yep. Same here.
Why, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but why did you start the Legal Drone? What kind of prompted that?
Well, like I said, I felt like I had an interesting perspective on it, but I got a little bit tired of everything feeling so unapproachable. I felt like there were a lot of people that were gearing their drone prep stuff basically just like they would ground school for a manned pilot, which kind of isn't helpful because a lot of people that are into drones don't have an aviation background. So when you start throwing around terms that are aviation terms, a lot of times people look at you a little sideways and they're just not interested in that. And so I wanted to find a way to make it a little bit more approachable, a little bit more affordable, just a little bit more accessible. And I've always wanted to create a website or something. And so that was my in to be able to do that. And I put together a full study guide on the Part 107. It's totally free. It's on the website. I've got practice.
Say that one more time. It's what now? It costs how much now?
It is free. I have a free study guide.
Okay. We just want to make that point clear. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's important. And I've been out to the website. It's very easy to navigate. A lot of good information out there, and it's free. So there you go.
Yeah. and it is not untested. I have had numerous people email me or comment or write to me and basically say, "This is super helpful. I passed my test with a 95 or an 83 or whatever it is." So it's helping people pass the test. So
good. And you kind of touched on it, but yeah, when I first got into drones, one of the things that I noticed that there's just a lot of misinformation out there. People just weren't sure about how things were supposed to work. You've got a lot of conflicting information out there. So finding good information at one point was a bit of a challenge, and can be even now. There's a lot out there now, but to be able to go to one place, one spot, and know that you're going to get some good educational information, it's a good thing. So what are some common things that you kind of see out there where people are struggling with information wise?
I think the registration can be very confusing for people, and it's either going to get better or it's going to get worse here soon. But people are confused on the weight limit when you need to start registering. People are confused on the difference between, if you've ever been to the FAA's Drone Zone website, they split up things between, if you're a Part 107 pilot, you do it one way. If you are a recreational drone pilot, you do it another way.
Right.
I think that's confusing to people. I mean, if you're a recreational drone pilot, you get one registration number and it covers all of your drones, and you pay the $5 once. That's currently how it is.
Yep.
If you're a Part 107 pilot, as you know, if you have five different drones, you're registering all of them. You're paying the $5 for each one, which isn't a huge deal, but it's cumbersome. It's just another step that people have to go through.
A lot of times I would put it to people like this: if you're recreational, you're essentially registering yourself.
Yes. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yep. If you're Part 107, you're registering every drone that you could potentially, earn money off of.
Right. Yeah. And I know that people like to make distinctions between, well, if I have a drone and it's Part 107 and I'm flying it recreationally, and it can get a little bit hairy if you are in a place where you're using a Part 107 drone and you're flying it recreationally, or vice versa. And so I think there's a lot of confusion surrounding that sometimes.
Yep. Good. Well, we can go out to thelegaldrone.com and get help with all of that. So good. Okay. So there's been a lot going on in the drone industry over the past, 6 months or longer.
Yeah.
A lot's been happening with our federal government. And there's a lot of angst right now, especially with FPV pilots, around what's being proposed with remote ID. So why don't you kind of talk through some of that? First, what's going on with the government and some of the proposed legislation and what's going on. And then with remote ID as well.
So if you'll let me kind of get into the weeds for just a minute, I promise I'll bring it back around to what makes sense. But I think there's, the first thing that we should say is that I have seen a lot of people, I won't, no need to name names or anything like that, but I've seen a lot of people online making a big stink about what is about to happen and kind of overblowing things a little bit, because really what the FAA has done so far is it's basically nothing. They've put out a note. It's called a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, an NPRM. And it's just a proposal. It's not actual rules. It's just a proposal.
Right.
And there's some conflicting information out there, but basically they put the proposal together based on information they received from a cohort of different groups that are involved and have an interest in the drone industry. And they are proposing that basically all drones, unless you're flying at an air park that is specifically for drones, must have some sort of remote ID or like a license plate in the sky for your drone. Yeah. So people are a little bit afraid of, there's some privacy concerns. Well, if I'm flying my drone, what kind of information is somebody going to be able to pull up on me? Is it just information on my drone? Do they get my registration information?
Grab their phone and go into an app and know who I am and where I am and come and jack me for my Mavic 2 Pro?
Yeah. There's a lot of concern about that. And I keep seeing the people freaking out, and it's like, okay, let's take a step back and just realize that at this point, the FAA is just gathering information. They are putting out a set of proposed rules, and they could change drastically from the time that, the comment period is closed.
Just ended March 2nd or something like that.
Yeah, I think March 2nd was, 10 days ago. And there was a lot of, within the first 3 days, there were over 1,000 comments on that notice of proposed rulemaking. So they are now taking those comments, and like I say in my article, there's some bureaucrat or team of bureaucrats that's now taking all of those comments, and they're collecting them and putting them into groups and figuring out what the patterns are and what the things are that everyone's concerned about. And so long as you took the opportunity to comment, your voice will probably be heard, and they will use that to actually craft the real rules that finally come out. So
we're talking about a 3-year period here, right? Before
it's not going to happen quickly. Yeah, it's not going to happen quickly. So
can happen in 3 years.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So
Um,
what do you think about what DJI is proposing? I mean, they put out some materials talking about how they support remote ID, but then they go into why they are not for what the government's or what the FAA is proposing.
yeah, the article that I read actually had a pretty good analogy, and I think it was the one that DJI posted on their website. And they were basically saying it would be the equivalent of not just requiring cars to have license plates, but also requiring cars to have some sort of tracking device that everywhere you went, it broadcast a series of information about your car and about you as the owner of the car, which is a decent way to look at it. I think part of what could make that FAA proposal better is if they limit the amount of information that has to be broadcast, or maybe limit who it gets broadcast to. So if it's law enforcement or a specific group of people could get access to it, that would be helpful. But I actually like what DJI has proposed because it basically doesn't require any sort of hardware upgrades.
There is the potential that we would have to pay a monthly cost to a third party provider, potentially for this transmission service, right?
Yeah, they call it a USS, and I think the way that everyone would know it is it's something like AirMap or Kitty Hawk or an app that you
Okay.
already probably use to get permission through the Lance system.
Mhm.
Those are actually the services I think that they're looking at
That makes
using.
sense.
But it's not a free. There's a lot of technology that goes into that. There's server space. I mean, there's
Right.
obviously a cost
Right.
associated with it because they're transmitting all that over the internet. So that's the other beautiful part about DJI's app is that it's not transmitted over the internet. It's actually just a local thing. So if you're near a drone and you see a drone flying, if you have the app, you can pull the app up and you can see, from what I understand, not personal information about the drone pilot, but maybe the registration number,
Hmm.
how high it is, how fast it's flying, those kinds of things.
I would be okay with
Which,
that. I wouldn't have a
yeah,
problem with
I
that at
would be
all.
too.
Yeah.
And they don't have to upgrade hardware or anything like that. You just do a software update and it works with your. And not only that, it's compatible with other brands. They haven't really released a final list, but it does work with other brands of drones, not just DJI. So
Yeah, and that was when I initially started looking into this and doing some research. One of the questions I had was, what about older drones? Would there be a way to sort of retrofit them, or is that something that could be updated in a software update or something like that? Or because I think the initial concern that I had, and maybe a lot of other people had, was, whoa, I won't be able to fly some of my older drones. They're just going to
yeah.
be grounded, right? So,
And I think I don't remember the exact statistics. I think I put it in my article on remote ID, but the FAA actually looked into, okay, if we put certain hardware requirements or certain software requirements, how many of the drones that are already out there would work with the requirements we're getting ready to put in place? And it was a large majority of the
oh,
drones. So
really?
there would be
Okay.
a small majority or a small minority, sorry, that would not be able to fly under even just the proposed rules, unless you're at a specific airfield or something like that, which in my mind seems a little bit like, that just seems a little bit too onerous. I mean, if you have a drone and it's an older drone and maybe it doesn't take great video, but you enjoy flying it and you want to go in your backyard and fly it, are you really going to have to go to an airfield where they fly model airplanes to go fly that drone? That just seems a little excessive to me.
Yeah, and that's where I think the drone public, us drone pilots come in. When the FAA seems to be overreaching, that's where we have to say,
Yeah.
hey, hold on, let's
Yeah.
let's think a little bit about this. Okay, so a few months ago, or maybe a little longer ago than that, the Department of the Interior decided to uh, ground all of their, I believe it was just Chinese manufactured drones. But since DJI has 80% market share, it's
Yeah.
likely that that meant DJI drones, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of talk about what that meant, maybe what that kind of signaled, and where things are headed.
So I guess the Department of Interior has a pretty large number of drones. I think they said they were grounding about 800 of their drones. And when I read the statement that DJI put out, it almost seemed like it was really just a ban because of the country of origin, that there is that our federal government has some trepidation, not to get political, but just there's some trepidation there about, the Chinese government and what is actually going on with hardware. I mean, there's sort of a similar story going on with the creation of a 5G network in the United States right now, where a Chinese company is trying to come in and bid on creating the 5G network, and the government there is also very hesitant to allow that to happen. But it was interesting because the statement I read from DJI said something about how they've actually had United States cybersecurity experts look at their drones for software and other issues to determine if there was an issue. And they said they came out clean. So it seems less like there's actually something going on there and more like maybe it was political. So yeah.
I felt the same way when I read that. It seemed like that they were working together. They even issued was it a government edition Mavic 2, I believe it was. So they even had a specific drone for the government. So it's interesting what's going on right now. Okay, so there it is, you guys. Just wanted to share this resource with you and introduce you to my man, Zac. And we didn't want to go into a tremendous amount of detail here, but you can head out to the website for that. So again, head out to thelegaldrone.com for some valuable educational information about drones and the drone industry. And of course, it's completely free. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks, Zac, for joining us today. Everybody be safe, be healthy out there. And as always, be good to somebody, be good to yourself. We'll see you in the next one. Later.